Welcome back to part 7, and this will be our final episode for the house itself. There will be an episode 8, which is the Sisley family, the evidence that ties them to this house and them to Barking Church, original documents and such like, and all that kind of thing, and a bit of what life was like in those days. So we're going to go through, we've come out the original turret and now we're going through the one that fell down and got rebuilt. Back through into the vestibule. That's where the Barking film was. We watched a few of them, didn't we? And now we go out through this lovely old door. And remember what it said about the door spoiling the symmetry of the window? You will see that in a minute. Coat done up. Here is the offending door. Now we're going to take a walk around the garden. Now you remember the bee skeps and the bee holes for the beehives? Here is one of them. So in Sisley's time you would not have caught me near that, I can tell you, because one of my only fears in life really is bees and wasps. My nan said once, "Oh, maybe you were stung to death in a past life, boy." Possible. Something induced this fear of them, so I don't know what. Here's some of the best preserved ones. You can imagine them, can't you, with their little bee skeps inside and your Tudor bee master or beekeeper coming out to look after them. The sad thing was with bee skeps, the wicker basket ones, they often had to kill the bees to extract the honey and honeycomb. That's why modern bee frames were invented, well, what we call modern ones. That's why the wooden bee frames were invented, so you could slide them out and extract the honey without destroying your bees. And here we are, dead centre, and there you see about the door, the symmetry of the door. We will check out that information board that's in the middle there in a minute. I've not forgotten it or disregarded it. Stocks with another bee hole. And have you noticed as well, there's none along this wall and there's none along that wall until you get right to the end there. They're nice and far away from the house. Well planned. That's exactly what I would have done. Sugar was outrageously expensive in those days, and it came in sugar loaves, like solid lumps, and you had to, if you wanted powder sugar, you had to grind it down yourself in a messel and porter. And a pestle and mortar. Pestle and porter, sorry. That's a good one, isn't it? Yeah. In a pestle and mortar. And yeah, honey was a natural sweetener. Also used the bees as well for the wax that they created. A private garden, enjoying a peaceful stroll in the Sisley's family's private walled garden. As you explore, look out for the little alcoves in the wall behind you. These are the original bee holes that once housed small straw beehives known as skeps. Bees were an important source of honey for the sweetening of food and medicinal uses, and beeswax for making candles. Other features of the Tudor garden that have survived are the brick walls and the metal gates. See if you can find the bricked up doorway in the centre of the wall behind you. This once led into a formal orchard and through it to a fish pond beside the River Maesbrook. And here is this bricked up doorway that would have led to, they called their fish ponds stew ponds in those days. To be able to eat fresh fish meant that you were someone, because most people ate dried or salted fish. You had a lot of fish days in those days, particularly before the dissolution of the monasteries. You had even more feast days. After that, you didn't have so many. But Queen Elizabeth I, she made Wednesdays, and I think it was Thursdays also as well, fish days, to give a boost to the declining fishing fleet. And this is where that gate was that would have taken you out to your stew pond and the River Maesbrook. And now we should go and have a look at the working garden for the house. You've seen the kitchen with its great fireplace and its little panelled room. Now you're going to see the working garden that supplied that kitchen. As it said, these houses were pretty much self-sufficient. And here, I shall show you it in a minute, you remember Clement Sisley's secret room, the numerant room, and the secret hiding space below it with its bricked up window. Here is that bricked up window, and on my last visit it took me quite some time to find it. In the end, truth be told, I had to go back in and ask. And that's where the Sisley coat of arms would have been above there for all the guests to see. Property of the National Trust. Now we'll have a look at the working or kitchen garden, which is just around here, past these bins. Kitchen garden is an interpretation of an Elizabethan garden that provides herbs for cooking, natural medicines, dyes and scent. Note the chamomile and hyssop. They were, when Clement Sisley was dying, in the Chelmsford archives, and there are some copies in the National Archives as well, there are copies of the household accounts and things for this house. They detailed everything from servants' wages to the very apothecary bills from the apothecary. That's like your early version of a chemist that had to be brought in from Barking to treat Clement Sisley when he was ill and dying. And all the remedies, pretty much most of them, for the time that Clement was ill and being treated, are all for fevers and things to bring fevers down and to soothe. And as you'll see in our very last episode, which is the lives of the Sisleys, you'll see why. It's even written out, that knowledge is even written out well in the church book. And because he was a well-to-do man, they actually noted down what he died of, which they didn't do with everyone else. Like the likes of you or me, we would say just be John Carter, buried on ye 9th day of August 1571. But someone like Clement, who had money and status and influence, is down as Mr. Clement Sisley Esquire, and even notes the cause of his death. You've got this little knot garden type area. That door there takes you in, back in through the kitchen. The West Face of Eastbury, the service wing of the house. This recreational space uses brick and traditional yew hedging in keeping with Tudor times. The planting includes soft fruit, herbs and vegetables that Clement Sisley's cook would recognise. This side of the house contained the kitchen, buttery and other service rooms of the ground floor. Bedrooms and some higher status occupied the first floor. That would be for the warmth from the kitchens. Behind you, on the other side of the Tudor wall, was an ancient track. This was the main route to Sisley's Eastbury Hall. The track linked Eastbury's farmyard, barns and fields to Ripple Road, Barking. Town centre is a mile further away. The pear tree was planted in 1935. And there is the track and the gate that would have taken us down onto the Ripple Road. Not very nice today, the weather. And there are these stones, and I have no idea who or what they're to do with, because this one's in Latin, and well, this one here, as you can see, is in a pretty bad state. Leave the old house behind. The service wing of it anyway. Oh gosh, damn this rain. Damn its eyes, as someone from Clement Sisley's generation would have said. Or something like, by God's death, sir, this weather 'tis damn bad sport upon a gentleman's privacy. Such pretties. I bet what was hidden in that room was such pretties as well. I wondered at first, was the room a priest hole? But there's no suggestions of Catholicism of a naughty kind or breaking the laws, the recusancy laws with Clement Sisley. He attended church every Sunday like a good Protestant, although if I was going to be burned to death in those days, I think I probably would have done the same thing as well. For not attending church, you pay recusancy law fines, which were quite steep. Some people paid the fines rather than break their faith, and some people made the ultimate sacrifice and became what they viewed as martyrs to their faith. I'm walking you back through the Sisley's private garden, and we'll go back through the house quickly, out through somewhere, because there's a particular view I want to end off with. Or a particular theme, rather, I want to end off with. If you look at the garden from above, as you've probably seen from some of the window views I've done, it's set out in the form of a cross. Decorative knot gardens seem to have been the thing of the Tudor era, and highly scented things. So, as the ladies walked by in their long skirts, it would brush against the scented things and smell nice. Don't forget those scented skirts had been washed and dyed in stale piss, so it was really needed. And bearing in mind, as I said, that Clement Sisley was a London man. They had property in Queen Hive, and that's where a lot of his business would have been conducted. This would have been what they called the country residence. And the easiest way for Clement Sisley to get from here to London would have been by river and water. The roads in those days were horrendous. You also run the risk of getting waylaid by highwaymen, and quite possibly killed even in that process. So where we're going to go now, it doesn't exist anymore, but where we're going to end rather is through here, this little doorway I showed you, and this is the bit that featured in the beginning. Oh, and again I nearly fell over. That's really slippery. I should put something down there. I would if it was me. I could fall over and have a claim and just lay there and shout, "Hey, help! Hey, help!" until someone comes and rescues me. Well, this doorway would have led to a track which led straight down to the Thames, and that's where Clement Sisley would have gone to go to London. But we don't go to London. This is our final episode at the house. We don't go London, not this time. We're going to the end of the journey for the Sisleys, the beginning of some of their journeys and the end of it for some of them, because it's not just deaths and graves we're going to look at, it's also christenings and a cheeky old man that sired a child in his 70s, Clement Sisley. he was an old fella, and with his young wife, big age gap, he sired a child with her. And we pick up with the journey that the Sisleys would have had to make every time they wanted to go to Barking, either to church or to the market or to Barking Fair, which was a big thing which rich and poor alike went to. The thing was in those days that rich and poor generally rubbed shoulders together. It's the way it was, I suppose. Still is, isn't it, really? When you go to the City of London, you've got the incredibly rich going to their offices and living in their London penthouses and things, walking past those who are begging on the streets and sleeping in doorways. But this is the track, the ancient track, that would have led from Eastbury Manor here onto Ripple Road. This little track would have gone straight down onto the Ripple Road, but because of the houses there, we can't take that journey. We have to go down Tudor Way. The wealthier members of the household would have made the journey on horseback. The others, the poorer servants and whatnot, on foot or in carts. The wheeled carriages of the latter era of Queen Elizabeth I's reign were unsprung and very uncomfortable. Women could travel in litters if they had the money. The Sisleys had that. The ladies would have either gone side saddle or in a litter if they were ill or bad weather. And as we say goodbye to the Sisleys world of the 1500s, and we picked up on their little journey that they would have made down here, straight through those houses which didn't exist at the time, we have to go on to Tudor Road, which is right here in front of us. So that is where we're going to go now, which will take us... I'm not going to walk you the entire length of the journey to Barking, because there's not much to see along that way, and it's, yeah, you know what I mean, don't you? But we are going to be jumping back into the past and the lives of the Sisleys as we leave their home behind and their world, and we walk back into our own world. We will again jump back into the past and examine some of the bits of the Sisleys' lives. What was life, birth, marriage, death like in those days? Much more bloody hands-on than the way we deal with it, I can tell you. Most of those things, the nastier aspects of life and death, were dealt with in the home. It's very clinical and clean and now whatnot nowadays. But we walked down Tudor Road, which didn't exist in those days. And we have to walk down this way to get onto Ripple Road, which did exist and has existed for quite some time. Here we go, Ripple Road. Unrecognisable to the Sisleys' day, of course. It would have been a track more than a road in those days, and they could have made their way by horse the short mile to Barking, or they could have gone by a river down the River Roding. But this is where I'm going. I'm heading off towards Barking, which is that way, and you'll catch me if you want to watch that for our final part, which is the lives of the Sisleys as we leave their house behind. I hope you've all enjoyed this tour. Thanks very much for watching, and if you want to learn more about the lives, births, marriages and deaths of the Sisleys, join me for our final episode as we head off to Barking.